Ask anyone who grew up in the 1980s, and they probably know everything about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Four brothers who fight a guy named after a kitchen utensil, love pizza, and talk like surfer dudes. And the whole thing about being turtles, of course. These days, however, the TMNT are much more than just a silly Saturday morning cartoon, but a media phenomenon thanks to new comics, new movies, and of course, new cartoons. In 2012, Nickelodeon rebooted the series, bringing back old favorites while also creating new mutants for our favorite heroes in a half shell to both fight beside and fight against. But in this reboot, who are the most heroic and honorable, and who are the most vile villains? I'm Kyle with Wicked Binge, and this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2012, Good to Evil.
You're not so tough, cheese grater! We got you!
As already stated, this series had a ton of characters, with some being new interpretations of characters from other incarnations, and some being completely original. As such, we're going to focus on the ones who were the most memorable or who left the most impact. Unfortunately, we won't be including any of the 80s characters that came to visit during the Series 2 crossovers. We also won't be including Usagi Yojimbo or any of the characters from his world, as this list is strictly focused on the 2012 universe. With that out of the way, let's get into it. As usual, we'll be starting with the most pure and noble characters and working our way down. These characters are the good. Our gold medal of good goes to the turtle who's one of a kind, Michelangelo. While not always the most serious of the group, it can easily be said that Mikey is the heart of the team. He tries to keep his brothers in good spirits by cracking jokes, but is still able to focus when he needs to. Beyond being comic relief, Mikey really does care for others and is able to be patient and supportive. He was able to get Leatherhead to calm down and open up to him through offering him food and kind words.
I bet the first thing he's gonna do is thank...
He was also able to calm Raph down after it seemed like Master Splinter was killed in the Season 2 finale. Additionally, Mikey is the friendliest of the Turtles, able to form friendships with characters like the mutant frog Napoleon and later on Mondo Gecko. Any friendship he offers is genuine and he's willing to see the best in people. He's also had some pretty massive wins, like when he saved the world by figuring out how to fix the seal of the Ancients and defeat Cavaxis.
Your new boss, Mikey, commands you!
A win like that gets you a ton of heroic points. That being said, Mikey isn't perfect. He sometimes messes with Donnie's things when bored, which often has mixed results. Sometimes he creates happy accidents like Ice Cream Kitty or the perfected retro mutagen, and other times he ends up giving himself mutant acne that nearly makes him explode. And he also sometimes makes a mess of things, like when he trashed the farmhouse and then ran away instead of cleaning. Still, given that he's a 15-year-old who has to deal with killer mutants and almost world-ending disasters on a near-weekly basis, you can't really blame him for wanting to cut loose at times. And these instances don't take away from the kind heart that he has or the hero that he can be when he puts his mind to it. What matches better with silver than the color blue? In second place, we have Leonardo. As the leader of the group, Leo does his best to follow the teachings of his sensei. He also does whatever he can to both lead his team to victory and protect his family when they're in danger. This has even included being willing to sacrifice his own life. You can't get more noble than that. However, while some like Raph may call him perfect, Leo has his own faults. When it comes to his status as leader, he can sometimes be prideful and stubborn, often taking unnecessary risks, like in the Season 2 finale when he ran off to fight Shredder on his own. He's also more willing to sneak around his family when it comes to his crush, later revealed to be his sister Karai. In Season 4's Broken Foot, he hit a bit of a rebellious phase when he decided to go with Karai and Shinigami to torch the Shredder's various hideouts.
We're outnumbered. We need help.
Unfortunately, Leo choosing not to tell his brothers about it resulted in them getting caught in the crosshairs and Donnie getting seriously hurt. Still, even with those not-so-great moments on his record, Leo has plenty of honor and morality. He works hard not just for praise, but so he can protect the city and the people he loves. Not a perfect leader, but pretty close. In third place, we have the fugitoid, also known as Professor Zayton Honeycutt. After the Triceratons activated the black hole generator, destroying the Earth, it was the fugitoid that was able to give the turtles a second chance to save their home. Now, let's address the mutant elephant in the room. Yes, Professor Honeycutt did create the Heart of Darkness after the Krang offered him enough money to continue his research, a fact that, when revealed to our heroes, devastated them.
You lied to us! Everything was a lie!
But to say that Fugitoid regrets this is a huge understatement. Throughout the first half of the 4th season, we see him do all he can to help the turtles recover the pieces and destroy the weapon once and for all. He also refused to repeat his mistakes when the Triceratons came to him for weapons, hence why he's now just a brain. After rescuing the turtles and taking them into the past, he became one of their most trusted allies, saving them time and time again, ultimately resulting in him sacrificing his own life to assure that the Heart of Darkness could never be used again. With all of that in mind, no pun intended, the story of the Fugitoid shows that even after making a bad choice, it's never too late to make things right. Next we have Leatherhead. Originally thought to be a monster, this mutant alligator has a surprising soft side. In his introduction, we learn that he was mutated and tortured by the Krang, and wants nothing more than to destroy them. He also has blackouts due to his rage issues and often regrets the things he's done afterwards. Thankfully, Mikey is able to see past his rough exterior to see the kind soul underneath. While certainly a powerhouse on the battlefield, Leatherhead is also extremely protective of his friends. In his debut episode, he's willing to distract the Krang and refuses to tell them where the turtles or the power cell they're after are, making him come off as very loyal.
I will deal with the Krang.
Later on, he's able to warn the turtles about an incoming invasion, again putting himself at risk to help his friends, and even offers to stay in Dimension X to hold the Krang off. Throughout the series, Leatherhead is shown to be one of the turtles' strongest and most trustworthy allies, proving that you shouldn't judge a book by its leather-bound cover. Just underneath him, we have Dr. Tyler Rockwell, a neurochemist turned chimpanzee. He possesses the powers of telepathy and telekinesis like April. When he first appeared, he wasn't in complete control of himself. It was quickly discovered that his hostility was more out of fear than actual malice. Later on, he becomes a valued member of the mighty Mutanimals, his intellect being enough to rival Donnie's. Though not much of a fighter when compared to teammates Leatherhead and Slash, Dr. Rockwell isn't afraid to get his hands dirty. He did briefly fight against the Turtles, but that was due to being infected with a mind worm, something that also happened to Slash and Raph. The main reasoning for him being this high up is that despite a rough start, Dr. Rockwell was a good example of a logic-minded hero, being someone morally sound and not really having any black marks to mention. At the same time, he's not the most outgoing mutant, often sticking with his team instead of going out on patrol like the Turtles do, and not doing anything extraordinarily heroic. So we can't really place him any higher either. Next up is Agent Bishop. Unlike the Krang, who are interested in mass mutation and taking over worlds, the Utrim are peaceful.
I am not here to fight you.
And as such, Agent Bishop has helped the Turtles fight against both the Krang and the Triceratons, breaking his vow of not dealing with earthly matters. While his personality can sometimes come off as cold, he does care about his allies and his people, though is sometimes a stickler for the rules. But even when he was concerned about Raph keeping Chompy Picasso, a baby alien turtle, Bishop is still willing to fight alongside the Turtles, protecting them against General Griffin and the Earth Protection Force. Up next is the time-traveling apprentice, Renee Tilly. While she didn't make too many appearances in the series, this timestress is certainly a memorable one. Still just an apprentice, she can sometimes be careless or immature. However, whenever she does make a mistake, she's more than willing to do all she can to fix it and fights well alongside the so-called turtle warriors of legend. Now, time travel can be tricky, so bear with us, but technically she's also the reason why the Turtles even exist.
It's just a little quantum manipulation.
During one of their time-traveling adventures, Renee left the Turtles in late 90s Japan so that they could save Splinter, then known as Hamato-yoshi, from a fire that would have killed him otherwise. It's kind of hard to deny an impact like that, even if it was the Turtles doing most of the work in that instance. Renee may only be a time master in training, but she's still a hero to us. Next is the guy who has a way with machines, Donatello. Donnie is the team genius, as well as the team medic and team mechanic. Time and time again, his gadgets help save the day. His father once called him a thoughtful soul, and many fans think of him as the adorable nerd. But while certainly a hero, he has sometimes made some questionable moral decisions. While he didn't do so on purpose, it was his influence that made Timothy, or Mutagen Man, become obsessed with April. While Donnie regretted this, it was still Timothy that paid the price, remaining frozen for the rest of the series. Then there's his crush on April. While sometimes it's sweet, other times it's, well, a bit creepy.
There's a creature out there trying to hurt my April.
Like the time he thought he could use Metalhead to stare at her without her noticing, or how he often argued with Casey over who deserved her. Finally, during the Kavaxis saga in Season 5, we see Donnie being willing to murder Don Vizioso. He was also so blinded by revenge that he put his team's mission at risk, and while you can understand his anger towards the man, you still can't help but think he's just a bit too young for murder.
This is the end.
Ultimately, Donnie decided against killing the Don and instead left him for police, which saves him from sliding any lower. While thoughtful and intelligent, he doesn't always make the best choices and can even be selfish at times. But at his core, Donnie is still our hero in purple, using both brains and brawn to save the day. Speaking of New York's most famous girl in yellow, we have April O'Neil just below Donnie. Once upon a time, she was just a normal teenager who just so happened to have aliens coming after her, which is always a bummer. As the series went on, however, April learned just how extraordinary she was and used her new telepathy powers and abilities to become a kunoichi, or female ninja. She's resourceful, determined, and just as tough as any turtle. While she did have a falling out with the Turtles in Season 2 after a mistake on their part caused her father to be mutated, she still considers them her family and best friends.
You mutated my father!
But when it comes to Donnie, it's complicated. Of course, there would be nothing wrong with her turning the guy down, but given that she never gives Donnie a clear answer, often making him even more confused, even after he tries to respect her feelings and back off, is questionable. In Season 4, we also see her start to grow more mentally unstable due to the Aeon Crystal she found during their space adventures. She becomes more hostile, more ruthless, and even disintegrates Donnie at one point. Of course, she's able to free herself from the crystal's influence without going full Dark Phoenix. But it should still be said that April might not have gone that far if she had listened to others' concerns in the first place.
No, it's mine! I need it!
Given that she regretted her actions and that she wasn't in full control at the time, we can forgive her brief power trip. As a character, she's anything but ordinary, and by the end of the series, we can see that she's truly grown to be a hero in her own right. Every student needs a teacher, and every turtle needs a rat dad, apparently. Up next is Master Splinter, also known as Hamato-yoshi. A father to 4, Splinter tries to instill a sense of honor within his sons. He teaches them and April the art of ninjutsu. Originally protective of them, he quickly sees their potential and encourages them to protect the city from villains. As the wise master, he can sometimes be very stern with his sons, especially if they lie to him or if they put their mission at risk. When he's angry at them for blowing their cover in The Noxious Avenger, he has no issues with roughing them up a bit.
How could you all be so careless?
He even puts a sword through their TV, really taking grounding to the next level. You also have to wonder if sending your kids out to fight a war that started before they were even born is good parenting. April even brings this up in the Season 1 finale, asking him why he isn't out there fighting with the Turtles instead of staying at the lair. To his credit, we do start to see Splinter become more active during certain missions later on in the series. Other characters like Raphael have also brought up his possible favoritism towards Leonardo, given that Splinter is often seen spending the most time with him, praises him the most, and teaches him special techniques without even asking the others if they'd like to learn too. He also puts a lot of pressure on Leo to be the leader, even when Leo thought about quitting the position in Season 1. Though he may not be the world's best dad, he's still a pretty good dad. He clearly loves all of his kids, including Karai. He teaches them lessons that they're able to use both in life and on the battlefield, and he never hesitates to come to their rescue even when they frustrate him. We finally come to the last of our half-shell heroes, the hothead Raphael. Raph can be brash, harsh, and rude. While it's normal for siblings to sometimes argue and trash talk, he can sometimes take it to a whole new level and even becomes physical at times.
I think hitting is gonna help. I'll work faster.
This can definitely make him come off as a bully, but he's really more of a jerk with a heart of gold. While his brothers may drive him crazy, Raph is always there for them and is willing to take the hardest hits so they don't have to. Though he may make fun of Donnie's crush on April, he also made an effort to talk him up in front of her and even tried to cheer him up when it seemed like Donnie's feelings weren't reciprocated. He's also been shown to comfort Mikey when he needs it. When his former pet Spike, now Slash, asked him to abandon his brothers, he refused and was willing to take his friend down to protect his family.
That's what real friends do. They stand up for each other.
Speaking of which, the guy has a huge soft spot for animals. From Spike to the pigeons he's tamed to Chompy Picasso, Raphael can be gentle and nurturing to the creatures that he cared for. He still falls a bit low given how mean and even violent he can be, but at his core, he loves his family and is a hero. He just has a hard time expressing his nicer side. Right below Raph is his vigilante best friend, Casey Jones. Like Raphael, Casey can be quick to anger, which can lead him to being careless in fights and sometimes even unnecessarily brutal. Originally, he became a vigilante to protect April and his family from the freaks of the world.
This is Casey Jones versus evil robo-ninjas.
Once he realized he and the Turtles were on the same side, he did calm down slightly. Still, Casey is a fighter at heart, and while he fights for justice, he isn't afraid to break a few rules or a few bones, as long as it means getting gangs like the Purple Dragons off the streets. Still, he can be sensitive and empathetic when he wants to be. He's protective of his friends, can sometimes be a good listener, and was even willing to put his rivalry with Donatello aside to save him from being possessed by Speed Demon. Like the Turtles and April, he wants to be a hero to his city and his team. Mona Lisa was a Salamandrian warrior, lieutenant of the Salamandrian Air Fleet, and fights alongside her commander. Her species fights against the Triceratons and focuses on being honorable in battle.
Now you will fight us.
While she wasn't originally interested in him, even being hostile, she quickly formed a bond with Raphael after seeing how much of a noble and skilled fighter he was. Even when she was still refusing to work together with him, she still shot her blaster at the ice underneath Raph rather than at him. Kind of a low bar, but hey, baby steps. Later on, however, she ended up betraying Raph and the rest of his team, leading them all into a trap set up by Lord Dreg. She did this to save her homeworld, but it was still devastating for Raph, who nearly lost his will to fight. Still, she regrets this choice and more than makes up for it, helping the Turtles escape and then helping them fight Dreg's forces again later on Earth.
Go! Save your world!
She even decides to stay on Earth with Raph, becoming not just a long-distance ally, but a romantic partner. And rounding out our good list, we have Mondo Gecko. Along with being another member of the Mighty Mutanimals, he's also another character that didn't leave the best first impression. After becoming a mutant and getting kicked out by his parents, he was taken in by Fishface, who instilled in him an attitude of always only looking out for himself. This led to him being careless and selfish, even laughing when Casey nearly fell off a building. Thankfully, Mikey was able to open his eyes to not only Fishface's true nature, but also to being a better person.
Sorry.
sorry about all this, dudes.
Though not the strongest or the most heroic gecko, Mondo still tries to help out when he can. And with that said, that's it for the good characters. Now it's time to descend into neutral territory. This is the gray area. At the very top of our gray list, we have the final member of the Mighty Mutanimals, Slash. Originally a pet tortoise named Spike, Slash made quite an impact after being mutated.
We may need to lose some dead weight.
While Raph was happy to have him around, Slash was more focused on taking out the other turtles, believing that Raph would be better off without them. Make no mistake, Slash was intending to kill the other brothers and even Raph at one point, not just beat them up. Really, it's no wonder Leo struggled with trusting him afterwards. Before forming the Mutanimals, Slash also aligned himself with the Neutralizer, which turned out to be a mistake, with Neutralizer being even more ruthless than Slash. Thankfully, after realizing that Raph was still his friend, Slash turned his life around and became a true hero. Still, it's hard to forget a first impression as violent as his, so we'll put him just on the edge of goodness, but still in the gray. Next up is the Kunoichi that needs no introduction, Karai. Early on in the series, she and Leo had this whole Batman and Catwoman thing going on. She could be sneaky and manipulative, but she wasn't necessarily evil. Leo certainly saw the good in her, and even after accusing him of lying to her about her true father, Karai still refused to slay Leo. While she did follow the orders of her adopted father, Oroku Sakai, she was willing to lie to keep the turtles safe, still keeping a sense of honor.
I can lead Tiger Claw away.
However, even after accepting the truth about Saki and Splinter, Karai still tended to focus on her own goals and wants over others. She wanted to defeat Shredder, but she wanted to do it in her own way. Granted, she didn't always get the opportunity to do good between getting captured, mutated, captured again, and finally brainwashed. Yeah, it was a whole thing. She did save her father, her real father, from drowning in the season 2 finale, so that was nice. In the end, while she didn't get to be the one to kill the Shredder, Karai did decide to create her own Foot Clan instead of joining the Hamato clan, in the hope of bringing honor back to the Foot. With all of the back and forth there was with her, we feel that Karai is best suited for the upper half of the gray area. Just underneath Karai is her right-hand woman, Shinigami. Much of what you can say about Karai, you can also say about her. She's a mystical witch who can be pretty cunning and arrogant, as well as a bit of a trickster.
Let's play a game.
The first time we saw her, she was antagonizing April to the point of stealing her weapon. She had no problems stealing laundered money with the Shredder, but she didn't argue when Leo and Karai decided to burn it instead. She'll often follow Karai's lead, never really questioning her and being completely loyal to her senpai. As such, she can also be very caring and protective towards her. Later on, this extends to the rest of Karai's family, and she even asks April to forgive her. Next, we have Timothy, also known as the Pulverizer. Yes, Timothy. Poor Timothy. Starting as a simple fanboy, he tried his best to be a hero like the Turtles. While Donnie did try to teach him some ninjutsu, Timothy just didn't have the skill for it.
I don't have time for the basics. Show me the good stuff.
He was clumsy, bumbling, and more of a burden than anything else. Still, he helped get Donnie and Raph after Raph was poisoned by Fishface. This would have been a nice win for him if not for him causing the team to lose their Krang power cell just a few moments before. Bummer. Later on, he tried to act as an undercover spy, becoming part of the Foot in order to learn their secrets. When Timothy learns that he has a chance to become mutated like the Turtles, he takes a chance despite Donnie's warnings.
Doing the mutation thing is notoriously unpredictable.
Unfortunately, Timothy becomes an abomination, turning into nothing more than a bunch of ooze and organs. He briefly becomes obsessed with April and is willing to hurt others to keep her all for himself. At this point, his mind is nearly gone and he has to be frozen in order to keep him from hurting anyone. Donnie promises to figure out a way to unfreeze and unmutate him, but this never comes to fruition. Timothy definitely wasn't a hero, but he wasn't a villain either. He was just a kid who wanted to be a hero, but his own foolishness and eagerness just got got in the way. One of the biggest tragedies seen in the show. Muckman, formerly Garson Grunge, received a similar and very disgusting fate. He's easily manipulated both by his partner, Eyeball Joe, and by Bebop and Rocksteady. Although he tries to be a hero at first, he's also willing to steal if it means finding a cure for his mutation. He also blames the Turtles for becoming a pile of living garbage and tries to take out his anger on them.
Who did this to me?
Once he learns the truth, Muckman apologizes and decides to help hide the Turtles' identities as mutant ninjas by telling the news that they were just guys in costumes.
Title mutants? Nah, no such thing.
While he's not quite the noxious Avenger that the news claimed he was, he does do enough to keep himself out of the bad tier. Finally, at the end of our gray list, we have Olopex. This speedy ninja is only after one thing, and that's revenge against her brother Takashi, aka Tiger Claw. Though they were once close, they've since had a falling out, with Olopex blaming him for ruining her life and turning her into an assassin. Before her debut episode, she was the one who took Tiger Claw's tail and was planning on taking his life.
You hang my tail like a trophy?
In the end, however, she acknowledged that he was the only family she had left and decided to spare him. After Tiger Claw decided to waste this chance, she cut off his hand and warned him that she wouldn't be as merciful next time. Although she was only focused on revenge, she never tried to seriously hurt the Turtles and was willing to help break the curse that she had put on Casey, showing that she no longer wanted to take innocent lives. And that wraps up our gray area. Now it's time to look at the henchmen, the villains, and the galactic destroyers. These are the bad and the evil. It really isn't easy being Baxter Stockman, from being mocked and people forgetting his name to becoming subservient to the Shredder. You can't help but feel just a little bad for this man-turned-bug. Still, even before his life started going downhill, the guy was a bit of a jerk and was willing to destroy and threaten just to make a name for himself and get revenge on those who made fun of him.
So, we'll call it a tie?
Despite his lack of success in the role, Stockman was more than happy to play the role of villain, always hoping to get the upper hand over those who were always putting him down. Things don't get much better for him after he becomes a fly. He helps Shredder with various projects like the Mind Worms and eventually Shredder's own super mutation. In the Insecta Trifecta, he did manage to strike out on his own with a couple of bug sidekicks. He even caught Karai, April, and Leonardo and had planned on using them to feed his bugs.
They'll never get past us, my insect brothers.
That's pretty unhinged, but Baxter as a whole isn't quite as evil as some of Shredder's other henchmen. For all of his abuse, he does get a happy ending when Mikey hits him with retro mutagen. But as it turns out, Stockman actually liked being a fly. Go figure. You can't have a TMNT series without Bebop and Rocksteady. These two were villains from the start, being introduced as a master thief and an arms dealer respectively. Though these two could sometimes be a bit goofy, they quickly rose up the ranks in the foot, becoming two of the Turtles' most dangerous opponents. Nothing shows how competent these two can be better than the final crossover of the series, where they very nearly helped the 80s Shredder destroy the world. But after a change of heart, these two ended up saving the day. Afterwards, they decided they wanted to be heroes, but it was more for fame and glory than any moral reason.
Maybe we become superheroes instead.
In any case, these two have done way too much to even hope to be in the gray tier, let alone the good. Still, you have to give them credit for turning over a new leaf in the end. Next up is Fishface. Originally one of Shredder's top henchmen, he was also part of the Brazilian mob, was a master thief, and even made his own weapons. Like the rest of Shredder's henchmen, he had no problems with committing crimes or even threatening teenage turtles. He was also willing to let fellow henchman Chris Bradford die when the Turtles threatened to drop him off a building if Murakami wasn't released.
He's not my friend.
In Baxter's Gambit, he was also willing to assist Raphael in order to free them both, but was also just as quickly willing to betray him. While he was kind towards Mondo Gecko after his parents kicked him out, he also clearly only saw Mondo as an errand boy and didn't truly care for him. It's only towards the end of the series, during the Kavaxis saga, that Fishface finally does something redeemable, revealing the Foot cultists' weakness to the Turtles before leaving the Foot altogether. altogether. But this is somewhat hindered given that he still plans on being a criminal.
I want to go back to a nice life of crime, stealing stuff.
Wrapping up the last of the lower tier henchmen is Chris Bradford, also known as Dog Pound. Unlike Bebop, Rocksteady, and Fishface, who all had some small good moments, Bradford is pretty much all bad. He was already pretty unlikable in his first episode, New Friend Old Enemy, when he used Mikey for his own gain and betrayed him, when all Mikey wanted to do was make a human friend. Unfortunately, it just gets worse from there. Each new mutation warps his mind even further, and he seems to enjoy being cruel to the Turtles and Baxter Stockman. Honestly, it's no wonder this guy was eventually sent to the Netherworld alongside the Super Shredder and Cavaxis. Still, he's not the worst, not because he has any saving graces, but because everyone else on this list is much worse. Up next is a member of rodent royalty, the Rat King. Along with just being creepy and disturbing, the Rat King is known for being unhinged and power-hungry. He had hoped to take over New York with his army of rats, and even took control of Splinter, forcing him to fight against his sons. He enjoys tormenting Splinter, constantly insisting that he is no longer Yamato Yoshi, but a rat that should bow to his king.
Bow before your master, rat.
But even before becoming the Rat King, he was a pretty cruel guy. In the episode Monkey Brains, we meet the man who would become the Rat King, Dr. Victor Falco. While trying to gain psychic powers, he forced experiments on his colleague, Dr. Rockwell, and mutated him into a chimp against his will.
You are always so dramatic.
Of course, Dr. Falco showed no remorse over this, only wanting power. However, after an accident involving some mutagen and some fire, Falco becomes even more unhinged. Then, later on, in Of Rats and Men, he starts sending his rats after humans again, only this time he doesn't just want to enslave them, but make them his test subjects. Although he dies in this episode, the impact that he leaves on the characters, especially Splinter, never really goes away. Don Vizioso is next on the list. While not as strong as Shredder in terms of power, having a whole mob on your side is nothing to sneeze at. As a Don, he also isn't afraid to resort to threats, blackmail, or even physical assault to get what he wants. Now, normally, just being a part of the mob would be bad enough, but what makes Don Vizioso even more dangerous is his hatred towards mutants. In Mutant Gangland, we see that he and his gang have equipped themselves with weapons to specifically take out mutants.
Taking over this town will be a piece of cake.
He also kidnaps Donatello and Mondo Gecko, nearly dissecting them. Keep in mind, these are 15-year-olds. If trying to dissect a kid doesn't get you pretty far down the bad list, I don't know what will. Also, not to make things too biblical or anything, but he certainly encapsulates the sin of gluttony. He was even willing to eat the Super Shredder's heart to gain the Shredder's power. That's both evil and disgusting. It's time for Tiger Claw, everyone's favorite kitty bounty hunter. In terms of henchmen, you can't get much better than this Tomcat. He rivals Shredder's other henchmen in strength and outmatches them in skill, not to mention his arsenal of deadly weapons.
Surrender, reptiles!
The only reason why he hasn't taken over the foot is because he's completely loyal to his master, even bringing Shredder back to life after he was killed. Unfortunately, that's the only person he's loyal to. She's cruel towards Karai, more than happy to turn her in when she protects her brothers, and was even willing to kill his sister after she spared him. Being a bounty hunter often requires a cold heart, and Tiger Claw has that in spades. He does have his limits though, being shocked when Shredder decided that his revenge against Splinter was more important than saving the world in the Season 4 finale.
Shredder, what have you done?
Still, he's never defied the Shredder, and his lack of redeeming qualities makes him a villain through and through. Looking back at the Turtles' adventures in space, next is Armagon, yet another bounty hunter and assassin that seemed to give the Turtles nothing but trouble. Unlike Tiger Claw, this guy is wanted in 87 different star systems. Not gonna lie, that's pretty impressive. Throughout the space arc, Armagon is constantly after our heroes, working together with Lord Dreg. Although Dreg instructs him to take the Turtles alive, if only so Dreg can watch their deaths in person, Armagon still doesn't make it easy on our heroes.
I'm the one calling the shots here. So move!
He also gets a laugh out specifically beating Raphael up in The Evil of Dreg, after Raph becomes too easy to fight, and was willing to help give Dreg control of the deadliest weapon in existence, the Heart of Darkness. Some villains are motivated by revenge or a twisted sense of humor. Others just have fun being a villain.
I'm gonna enjoy this.
But Armagon just wants a paycheck, and as long as you're willing to pay him for his work, he'll do or destroy just about anything you tell him to. The Neutralizer was a salamandrian war criminal that had a nasty tendency of eating anyone in his way, especially if they're pink and squishy. He hates both the Kerrang and the Utrum, not believing that the Utrum are good. While anyone who fights the Kerrang earns 1 or 2 good points, these points are just as quickly dashed by just how ruthless the Neutralizer can be when it comes to his goals and literal hunger for revenge.
I'm gonna eat your brain.
This reaches a new level in When Worlds Collide, where he teams up with Lord Dreg to destroy the Utrum High Council, not caring if the rest of Earth and millions of innocent people fall with it. He also disintegrates Mikey, and while it was revealed that Mikey survived, we still count this as attempted murder. That alone puts him near the end of our villains list. It's time to get weird. Worm begins our top 5. Although more chaotic than straight evil, Worm is still very dangerous. Though he's officially known as one of the 3 really bending creators of chaos, he's more like a twisted genie, offering anyone he meets 3 wishes.
So what's it gonna be?
But once those wishes are spent, Worm is freed from his prison and able to use all of his powers to twist the galaxy into whatever he wants. We get a taste of this in his debut episode, watching him happily destroy planet after planet before Casey is able to wish him back into his prison. He doesn't seem to care who gets hurt by his antics, he just wants to do things his way. While not the most evil, he's possibly the most threatening out of all the villains, given his power level and that you really can't fight him. You can only trick him back into his box. Just missing out on the evil podium is none other than the Shredder, Oroku Saki. Like many other characters in TMNT 2012, Shredder is driven by revenge. What makes him different than others, however, is just how far he's willing to go to kill the man who he claims took everything from him, and he eventually succeeds twice.
I have claimed my victory.
He has no qualms about killing teenagers either, and for the first few seasons, his only redeeming quality was that he cared about his adopted daughter, Karai. Still, even this relationship was built on lies. When Karai found the truth, Shredder wanted nothing more than to control her. While he didn't mean to mutate her into a snake, he still refused to take responsibility for it. Later on, he tried to brainwash her by using mind worms. When that failed, Shredder was willing to rid himself of any affection he still had for Karai just so he wouldn't have to worry about her getting in his way. By the end of the series, Shredder had gone completely mad, becoming nothing more than a heartless, power-crazed monster. So why only put him in 4th place? Well, Shredder may be a threat to the Himoto clan, but for the most part, he isn't usually a global threat. Unlike the following. We're giving both Lord Dreg and Captain Mozar our bronze medal. While they are different enough as characters, their threat levels, purposes in the show's storyline, and motivations are similar enough that having Dreg and Mozar in separate spots would just be too repetitive. Dreg is an alien crime lord who considers himself the ruler of all insects, while Mozar is the leader of the Triceraton fleet. Both of them have threatened to kill the turtles multiple times. With Dreg specifically, the turtles didn't have to do much to earn his anger. When they first met, the only offense they committed was accidentally knocking him down and not knowing who he was. Though this certainly makes Dreg seem petty, he's still very much a threat. As stated earlier, he's teamed up with several other villains throughout the series, while also being powerful in his own right by having an army of bugs at his disposal. In The Evil of Dreg, we see that he has enough power to threaten the Salamandrian homeworld. And even after Mona Lisa does everything Dreg asks, he still decides to invade the planet anyway, though he seems to be defeated for good a few times. Just like a stubborn cockroach, he just keeps coming back.
No fair! No fair!
Ultimately, this results in him coming to Earth in the second part of When Worlds Collide. He not only plans to take over the planet, but also use humans as his egg sacs. Honestly, even if the turtles had done something to deserve Dreg's revenge, his actions would still be no less evil and heartless. As for Captain Mozar, he cares even less about the planet Earth, only seeing its destruction as a means to get rid of the Krang once and for all.
Let us be done with these pests.
He's brutal, cunning, and refuses to let the TMNT stand in the way of his mission, being more than willing to put up a fight in order to get all of the pieces of the Heart of Darkness. Both of these guys more than deserve this spot on our list. Now for the Silver Medal of Evil, it goes to an entire species, the Krang. These guys were here from the beginning, long before Splinter and the Turtles even. They kidnapped members of April's family, experimenting on them in the hopes of using them for their master plan, turning the planet Earth into a copy of Dimension X and taking it over.
Krang shall dominate the Earth.
Through their devastating mutagen, these guys have turned countless lives upside down and traumatizing dozens. They don't care about who they hurt, they just want their planet. While it's nice to know that there's a good version of these guys with the Utrum, it doesn't really change just how much devastation they've caused throughout the series. From kidnapping and enslavement, to torture and experimentation on innocent creatures and even children, to bringing about a mutant apocalypse in an alternate future, there's only one character who could be worse. Earning the Gold Medal of Evil is Cavaxis. Although he was only around for a few episodes, you can't underestimate just how evil this guy is, to the point where even Shredder realized how necessary it was to defeat him. To be fair, the guy is a demon. It's hard to get much more evil than that.
These mortals are not worth my time.
He's the lord of the Demodragons, a species from the Netherworld. For those not in the know, Demodragons are demons that bring about disaster to the world. Though he pretended to be subservient to Tiger Claw, Cavaxis was secretly planning on opening up the Netherworld and using this connection to take over Earth with an army of ghosts. It was only through some quick thinking on Mikey's part that he was eventually defeated. Had it not been for that, the Earth would have been doomed. And it's scary to think just how close Cavaxis was to winning, being the most powerful enemy the Turtles had ever faced. He's also the most evil. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and let us know what series you'd like covered next. Make sure to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.